No, I was not the first woman governor of Texas. Well, in the 20s, there was Pa Ferguson, who was governor, and Pa was married to Ma, and Pa died. And Ma became governor. Now, she was the one, when asked about bilingual education, who said, if the English language is good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for everybody. And an oncology fellow who's, which is not one of our full-time faculty, but someone who's in training here, specializing in oncology, came into my room. I want to apologize, but we can't find your records. Could you tell me what kind of cancer you have? I said, this is appalling. He said, no, hey, it's not just you. It happens here quite a bit. I said, I am appalled for every patient who comes on this unit. And I had to go through from like the beginning, my whole story. Well, eventually, I'll tell you as an aside, eventually I knew, I could tell by his question that he was going to get to the question of, do you work? And I've never advertised my position around here. I just want to be treated like everybody else. And so, you know, he says, do you work? You know, about midway through his questions. And I said, I do. And he said, are you working full time? And I said, I am. And he said, where are you working? I said, I'm associate dean at the medical school. Now he looks up. At this medical school? I said, at the Yale School of Medicine. He found my files within a half an hour. Toughness? Well, we was in West Jordan, Utah, and this bull shoved my face right through the metal chutes and tore my face all up. And took me to the hospital. It took me 5 hours sewing up my face, and then the next day they straightened out my nose. And I had a rodeo that night, so I didn't want them to put me under anesthesia or whatever, however you say that word. And when they straighten out, so I told them to do without it. And when they straighten out your nose, they take these 2 metal rods and shove them up your nose and work their way up. And it felt like it was just going out through my brains and out the top of my head. And everybody said it should have killed me, and they didn't even knock me out. But I have a high tolerance for pain. But the good thing about it was, once they straightened out my nose, I could breathe, and I couldn't breathe since they broke my nose in the high school rodeo. It's just this force. I mean, downhill skiers drive 120 miles an hour. I mean, that's why it's, with this whole doping thing, it's ridiculous to say to them, oh no, don't do that, you might hurt yourself. Tell a downhill skier, tell an Austrian gold medalist downhill Olympic skier, oh no, you don't want to take a little EPO, you might hurt yourself. Are you kidding me? I don't run for the phone anymore. And you know, when Esther was in the nursing home, she couldn't converse with me. But when I was leaving, I turned to go to the door, and she said, I see you still got that big ass. And I thought to myself, that's the last thing my sister said to me. So it means taking the measure of the days you have, taking death seriously, because it is ultimate. And we have had something precious. And we recall it regularly and faithfully when we visit the graves of the ones we love. And then my job is to try to urge them to come back. I say, I don't want you to leave here today full of terror and sadness and sorrow. I want you to know that this is the place that you can come to recall to life, in whatever fashion you have, the person we sent off today. I say, come here again. Bring flowers. Remember your loved one. I flew in, you know, you go into a crouch, and at this certain moment, you go into a flying horizontal X and land on, and I made the fire as big as this torso part. So basically, big enough that you could see the fire, but not so big that it went outside my body, because I would just smush the oxygen out of it. And I landed on it, and unbeknownst to me, I had been rehearsing, and I had some sterno on my torso. So when I went like, whoom, like that, and I looked under, I go, ooh, uh-oh, I'm on fire, and ooh, I smushed it, and I go, oh, that's not gonna happen, and I stood up, and I was literally on fire. And I kind of went like this, and then I was like, oh my God, this is the fastest phenomenon. I've never seen anything move that fast, be that fast. You know, just like seconds that were stretched. And the thing is, everybody in the room was looking at me like, oh my God. But nobody did anything. Yeah. Isn't that fucking crazy? Did nothing. And one of my friends was even continuing to take pictures. Danita, my friend.